Okay, let's try this again. I have some messages that people didn't understand anything I was talking about. So let me start real slow. First off, this is Staying in the Light podcast, radio, and we don't need to show images. We want you to use your imagination. That's why the screen is black. And my theme is that we should stop calling ourselves black. I have stopped that long ago because I know my nationality. I know my ancestry. So, seeing that my ancestry is a part of the Moorish Empire, I know I'm a Moorish American. But you may not know that. You may not have done your research. So, start with calling yourself an American and find out if you have an Indian affiliation or whatever affiliation. It's going to be with the Moorish Empire because that was the empire that we all belonged to at some point in time when we was ruling over 400 years ago. Uh, excuse me, 600 years ago, 1400s. So, okay, let's start with before civil rights. I'm gonna start about 19. Let's start about 1920s, before the Depression. Okay, when they say roaring 20s, that was us. We was roaring back then because we was separate. We had our own communities, and we were not suffering. We was prosperous. How did we get prosperous? Since nobody was giving us jobs. Well, we learned how to circulate money among ourselves by different things we did. We called it policy. We called it policy. We didn't call it running numbers. We call it policy. And when the community wins, everybody wins in the community. So we took care of each other as a community. Nobody went without. And that's how we became very prosperous. And that was the beginning of Wall Street, because what Wall Street does is they speculation. We just did it in a different form. We would say, "What's the number for the day?" And people in the community would bet on what the number is going to be, and the money would stay in the community. You see, because they wouldn't allow us to trade in their communities, but that was a benefit. We took that negative and made it into a positive, and we prospered because of it. Because that's what the creators say we're supposed to do. We're supposed to work in our own houses and do for ourselves as a people. Everybody does that. So we did it very well. And we was rolling back then because that's when the musicians, we started teaching music to our youngsters, and they learned music. We learned all kind of trades because remember now, when we was forced as servants, they call it slavery. When we was forced into indentured servitude, we learned how to do everything because they wouldn't do anything and they couldn't do anything. So they had to have us around because they didn't know how to even put a light in the bulb or fix a fence or just didn't have any skills because they would say that type of work was beneath them. And we would do all the work, so we was the one who was skilled. Follow me? I'm gonna try to go slow. I get so excited I go fast sometimes. Okay, so we became very prosperous in our communities because of this policy we had of circulating money, and we would just keep building, building, building. Banks, supermarkets, stores, and the other community became envious of us because we had surpassed them. They had to work the hard way because they wasn't as united as we were. Like I say, we learned how to circulate money in our own communities. They had their own communities, but it wasn't as prosperous because, like I say, they didn't know how to do anything. So we had to work for them. But guess what? We work for them and bring the money in our communities and circulate in our communities. So they wanted to go to a club and have a good time. They had to come in our communities. So pretty soon they got pretty fed up with this because we was outshining them and everything. And they I'm speaking of is that the so-called dominant Gentiles. That's when they just started right just bombing our communities. They would say it was a race riot. They started off saying we attacked a white woman. But it was just an excuse to destroy our communities. This was done in about 48 cities back in the 1920s. And yeah. But see, you couldn't keep us down because we had these skills. We would always build ourselves back up. And God don't like ugly. You see, we still had land, and we were still on our land, and we knew how to run the land and take care of the animals. Because remember now, they forced us to do this on slavery. Well, I won't say slavery. I would say servitude. But we did this before they came, so we was the workers. We know how to we know all the work, how to be done, how to take care of the land, the people. This is what we do. They came from Europe. They didn't know how to do this. They didn't know how to do it. The way they learned is if they wanted to learn, we had to teach them. But they didn't know how to do these things. That type of work was beneath them. Remember now, they were spoiled for so many years, they just gave orders. So they didn't know how to do any manual labor. So that's why we prospered, because we was the manual labor. We work with our hands, the musicians, the painters. And as I said, we build our communities very strong. And some wise guy come along and say, oh, you need to integrate. What? That was the craziest thing. But the only reason they did that, well, let's slow down. Let me slow down a little bit. I'm going a little fast. Okay, so we was circulating money in our communities. They were envious, so they destroyed our communities, just outright, just destroyed it. You know, this was after the war, World War I. They just envious and jealous of us. They just came in and destroyed the communities. But we learned how to build it back up. Okay. But as I said, God don't like ugly. So he brought this they did not know how to circulate the money and prosper themselves. So their economy suffered. Their economy suffered. It didn't affect us, because we lived off the land. When you watch these old films about the Depression and people in bread lines, you don't see us there. We didn't even know about it because we was on the land. We wasn't muchly in the cities during that time. If we was in the cities, we also was on the land. We had our own land, so we was going out land and farm and grow our food and we had our animals. We knew all that. We knew how to take care of the land, the animals on the land. That's what we did. Okay, so they was repaid divinely by this depression because of what the ancestors did to us in destroying our communities. This was a divine retribution, in my opinion. So this gave uh, Frederick, what's his name? Theodore Roosevelt to come in. And really what he did was, what his actions was destroying our communities because, like I said, we wasn't suffering from the depression or the bankruptcy. We wasn't. We was bartering on our land. We took care of each other. And we had to go. So when he came to office, he had this thing where we had to turn in our goal, and that's what caused us to start slipping into poverty. They didn't have any gold. Remember, they was the poor ones. They didn't have much as we had. We was the envy because we knew how to circulate money in our community. So we had to go. So this bankruptcy was really for us. We had the wealth. So he made a law that if we didn't turn into gold, then he would it was a crime. We can go to jail. But we still had the land, so we turned into gold. And we kept prospering. So then the campaign was to get us off of our land. Yes, they saw that's how we stayed prosperous and bring us into the cities. And then we prospered in the cities, in our own communities for a long time. Because we was the musicians, we was the caterers, we was the cooks. Remember now, we did all the work because we was the one who was servants. I think I given enough background. So when this Roosevelt destroyed the communities because we had to turn in our goal, and then they forced integration. That came a few years later, started in the 50s. Remember, integration was we didn't want integration. We wanted economic opportunity because remember, he destroyed our neighborhoods was destroyed. They had taken our land. So the only way we could survive was to keep working in their communities. So they stopped allowing us to work in their communities because we would always take our funds and go back in our communities and make our communities prosperous. So that's why they stopped us working in their communities, because we always had our communities to go back to. I hope this is helping some of y'all taking notes. So these colored people, they're not white people. I mean, they're not colored people or white people, okay? Not black people, I'm saying. These colored people. They want integration because it favored them. Because if we didn't have our own communities, we were forced to do everything in their communities. We had to buy their houses, we had to buy their food and their stores. So we become like enslaved again, forced servants. But this time we didn't have our land to go back to, and we didn't have our communities to go back to because of this forced integration. But we still prosper to a certain degree because that's when I grew up. That's why I can really recall that era when we had our own communities. But our grandparents was working in their houses, you know, and they'd get their old clothing and leftovers and things like that. But we still had our dignity because we had this thing called policy where we'll circulate funds in our own community and stay prosperous. We wasn't begging nobody for anything. We didn't have beggars in our community. I remember myself shining shoes for a quarter, a nickel, a dime. And you can have a dinner off of 50 cents. You can buy yourself a dinner. You can buy the family a dinner for $2. So integration actually destroyed the family. I hope the historians taking this down. Now I'm getting to the part I want to talk about how Trump is changing things for us. Because even though we had our own families, we were strong, we were never beggars because of that strong family we had. And so they came with this plan to help the woman who was struggling. The man was not able to find work. Remember now, because they knew we was taking our funds and our skills into our communities. So when they found out how we were staying prosperous, they stopped allowing us to come and work in their communities. So the men couldn't get work. The men couldn't get work because of that. If he didn't have his own business or he wasn't a musician or something, he was suffering. So his family was suffering. So the government said, oh, we can help you. We can help you. A problem they created in the family, they're going to help the woman in the family. So she didn't really know what was going on. So she accepted the assistance. But there was a caveat. They said, well, look, we're going to assist you, but don't help him. He's not to benefit from this assistance. That's when the melanated man became criminalized. They say he cannot be living in the same house if you are receiving assistance because we don't want him to get the assistance. This is just for you. We're going to help you, but we're not here to help him. Okay? So he played the game, and she took the assistance, and then it became like a plague. It became something women depended upon. Then they got the food stamps out and started giving people food stamps, which meant what? It was easier to live off food stamps than to work in their communities. So that was caused laziness. That would cause laziness. Just flooding our neighborhoods with that. Oh, before then there was something called, 'cause we received something called uh, commissary. The government give you certain things like cheese, which is dangerous for the body to begin with, and all that salt. You know, commodities, that's what it was. The government used to give out commodities to families who were struggling. Dried milk, cheese, what was else? Oatmeal, rice, Yeah, every month they give out these commodities. It wasn't nothing real food like fruits or nothing like that, or meat substitutes maybe. So when the government started giving out this commodities, that's when they get start giving out food stamps and say buy your own. So that was big. That was abusive. They abused that. Then the next step to destroy of the all these were different daggers to destroy the family, to destroy our prosperity and our wealth, and really to destroy our spirit. Our spirit. This is a spiritual war. So they gave the women money because the man could not find work, and so that's when the man became criminalized and he couldn't stay in the home. And women saw, well, that's he must be a no count since he can't provide for us. But they didn't understand the problems that they was being favored. There's always this idea of divide and conquer. If you want to conquer people, you just divide them. That's what the Hutu and Tutsi war was about. That genocide that happened. Some of you maybe read about it back in the 90s, 94, something like that. The French has given favor to one tribe over the other. And so this tribe became prosperous and the other tribe wasn't. So they just began to hate the other tribe to the point that they just went to war against each other. Yeah. So it's the same thing happened in the family. The men was made enemies, war against each other. And we're not enemies, but if you're paying one side and you're keeping the other part from getting jobs and ability to uplift themselves, then the women see you as a no count because she's giving things, she's giving opportunities more than he is. Okay, so y'all follow me? All right. So what Trump says that hey, you're not going to long on benefit from having children out of wedlock. If you choose to have children with a man who can't take care of the child, that's the burden you're gonna have to bear. We're not gonna support that any longer. And that's a wonderful thing because what that's gonna do is force them to work things out. What families do, family work things out. And they say, well, instead of you giving me money, why don't you just stay in the house and we work it out? That's what families do. So that's what he's encouraging us to do. And matter of fact, the women are going to be forced to do that because there'll be no other choice. There's no one is giving them anything anymore. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. Now a man can be a man of his home again. There's no outsider ruling his home vicariously by giving the woman money, giving her opportunities that he don't have. They did a job on our family, I'm telling you. So hopefully all that has changed. So now the women gonna see the value of having a man and being obedient and not giving all these false agendas. Another thing took the civil rights movement away was this feminism. which the white women sold to the black women. And the black women didn't was having no problem with us. We wasn't beating them. We wasn't doing all those things their man was doing to them. But they just made it their problem and say, yeah, it's your problem too. And your sisters they just ate it up. They just fell for the okie doke. So I just gave that history. This should be published somewhere. I hope y'all repeat this. Publish a book about it. Prosper on it because it's the truth. And yeah, you got my permission right here to circulate this knowledge. Because if you profit from it and you print it as the truth, then you're going to have someone else to see. And that's my point. I want to raise up the uplifting humanity. I'm just so energized today. I'm telling you, I'm probably gonna be awake half the night. This not just tonight. I mean, since the latter part of last month, I think it's these planetary alignments. This energy surge. I've been getting it, y'all. I just been getting all this energy, harnessing it, and yeah. So that's what I want to say. I see the chat is toned down. Nobody's in there. No questions. So peace to the righteous Moors.